orange cones and detour signs, big clues that construction is ahead. And while many of us see construction as a huge inconvenience, once those improvements are complete, many would agree that the pain was worth the gain. Hello, I'm Betty Hollister, Public Information Manager with the Regional Flood Control District, and welcome to another edition of the Flood Channel. Coming up on today's show, you might have guessed, we're talking construction. See how an army of more than 50 semi-trucks is building one of the biggest parks in Clark County. Plus an update on the district's construction program. With every completed project, we're constructing a future better protected from flooding. Finally, a look back at the construction of the Hoover Dam, how the dam became the first flood control feature in the Western Hemisphere. That's all coming up on this edition of the Flood Channel. The northwest side of the valley has been plagued by flooding for years. People excited to escape the big city lifestyle were eager to build homes in the not yet developed area, but with no curbs and gutters or proper drainage facilities, their homes were left vulnerable to flooding. Carrie Ann talks about how the district steps in to help.
Over the years, the residents near Floydland Park have seen the devastation of flooding, but now the district is spending nearly $23 million to help solve the problem. By this time next year, this area behind me will be one of 2 detention basins being built to help protect the community.
Any construction whatsoever in the city of Las Vegas, especially with regional flood control facilities, is quite inconveniencing for a lot of people. The important thing to remember is it's only temporary. And of course, with the North-South Environmental Enhancement Project, the 2 detention basins we're digging at Floydland and Tule Springs, this is for the protection of homes and properties in the years to come.
We're constructing 2 detention basin facilities that contain the drainage water that comes from the north region that really doesn't have anything to control it. Along with the 2 detention basins, we're also installing a 7,000 lineal foot large diameter storm drain pipe that will funnel the water down Russell into the detention basin, and from there take it down to the golf course, where there's an existing channel that ties into the other flood control projects.
The southern basin has a footprint of roughly 120 acres. Okay, for the sports fan, that's equivalent to roughly 90 football fields, including the end zones. The northern basin has a footprint of 67 acres, and that's roughly 50 football fields from end zone to end zone.
A project of this magnitude can certainly be an inconvenience for people who live in the area. Residents have to put up with traffic delays, noisy trucks, and dusty streets. And while that sounds like a lot to ask, neighbors in this area have been putting up with damaging floodwater for years. They say while construction is a hassle now, this project is definitely needed.
Since we lived here since December of '94, and there's been many times when this rains, we get summer thunderstorms. And they're not too bad. They get a little water laying around. But the 2 that I remember specifically was in October of '04 and then President's Day of '05. And when that happened, the water came right in through here. And this whole street here was probably 6 inches to a foot underwater. It created a lot of damage.
They're older homes, so when these homes were built, they didn't have the master plan communities where there's a storm drain facility that's built into them with the underground drainage and the curb and gutter. So there's nothing to control or contain the water as it came in.
When complete, the detention basins will help protect the area from flooding. And while that's typical for most flood control facilities, there are some unique challenges when it comes to constructing a project of this size.
Obviously, the major challenge with construction of the project is hauling the dirt. And this is a huge earth-moving project. That's the biggest part of this project. We're moving roughly 2.5 million yards of dirt.
Originally, when we started the project, it was a big flat area with a few channels that ran through it. The bowls on the basin get dug down about 22 to 25 feet from where they originally sat. on that large of an area and that depth generates a lot of material, and the only place to take it is to truck it away somewhere that needs it.
Now it's a huge inconvenience for the community out here while this project is going on, but the benefits will way outweigh the inconvenience right now.
Given all the problems that we've had here, the water and the damage and the dollars it costs you, it's probably something you got to put up with.
The hauling was supposed to be done by June of 2011. We've accelerated that project. We're trying to get this project done as quickly as possible, which is significant for the quality of life for those folks.
We're loading up the material onto these trucks. Each truck holds approximately 25 cubic yards of dirt. The faster that the contractor can load up these trucks and get the dirt out of here, the sooner this project will be done, and the next flooding event will see this thing in action.
Approximately 55 trucks are averaging around 12 round trips a day. That's between 600 and 700 loads of dirt passing by homes from 7:30 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon. That's a lot of dirt, so crews are doing everything they can to keep things as pleasant as possible for residents in the area.
Contractors implemented truck washes on both sides of the operation. That means on the excavation side of the operation, where the detention basin is, where the trucks are loaded up, before the trucks go out onto the street, they go through a truck wash. Dirt's washed off the wheels of the trucks, the undercarriage of the trucks, the sides of the trucks. So as they're rolling down the street, you're not seeing a plume of dust coming off of them. Once they get down to their dump zone, they dump the material and they drive through another truck wash. So on their trip back to the excavation site, they're not tracking more dust.
This is a unit that we went in with the city. It's the first one of its kind that's come to Las Vegas. This is completely transportable and mobile.
The streets are being cleaned on a regular basis. The truck washes have been installed. The contractor has a zero tolerance for any trucks speeding along those routes. First time you get caught, you're terminated. So we've really got the attention of those drivers.
We're asking residents to please be patient. When complete, these facilities will house a huge park with more than 5 miles of walking and equestrian trails. The Flood District is funding the detention basins, and the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act is funding the passive park improvements.
These two detention basins at Floyd Lamb at Tule Springs are also going to have those great enhancements. We're going to have walking trails, bike trails, picnic areas. We're just not digging two great big holes in the ground and leaving them. This is part of a legacy, part of Southern Nevada history when you talk about Tule Springs, and people know that. We've worked very hard to preserve that history here in Southern Nevada, and I don't want it going away. So as we build these necessary facilities, we're also enhancing them for the benefit of the public so they can actually go out there and use them and do things with them.
What I like to think of as my job is basically preparing an instructions manual that the contractor can use to build this facility. The flood control projects, of course, are funded through the flood control district, but the recreational component of the project was funded through the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act. And it was a great opportunity to combine those two funding sources into a project that would work out and benefit the park and the neighbors downstream.
What we had to do with this one is almost disguise it. We're going to preserve the original plants out here. We've salvaged trees, plants. We're planting more trees out here. It will look like a fairly natural area. We'll still be able to tell it's a detention basin in some sense, but it will look fairly natural. We've taken basically a barren desert area and provided not only protection from flooding, but a passive recreational area for the community.
The ultimate benefits are to the good. We all understand that. Those of us who live right here, all of us in this neighborhood, understand you need to do it. So it's not just that you're going to dig 3 holes out in the desert here. It's going to be finished off. They're going to have trails. They're going to have some nice things there for the people to use. So, you know, there's a benefit to that too. So it's just kind of like, you know, grit your teeth and realize that in the long term it will be a good benefit.
Construction's not a bad thing. It used to be the state's #2 industry, and it's not that anymore. So I get excited when I see sticks in the air, meaning homes being built, even if it's 3 or 4, not 30 or 40 at a time. It's still exciting because it's an economic sign to me. Things are changing for the better.
It's very rewarding to know that what we're doing here is going to provide long-term flood benefits for thousands of people downstream, and also that, you know, my kids and my family are going to be able to come and enjoy this part of the park, and future generations of Las Vegans as well.
Everything we do ties together to control the floodwaters and point them in the direction of Lake Mead and into the Las Vegas Wash. So it's part of a master plan. It's part of tying all the puzzle pieces together and making it happen. We're changing the face. We're changing the map of Las Vegas for the better. We're protecting homes, protecting people. We as the City of Las Vegas, we as the Regional Flood Control District, we are doing everything we can to take our money, pump it back into our economy, keep people working, and preserve the quality of life for people and protect their homes and properties. That's what we're all about.
Construction on these detention basins should be wrapping up by this time next year. Another huge benefit with these facilities, more than 300 people are working on this project during these tough economic times.
In addition to the north and south environmental enhancement areas at Floydland Park, several other projects are underway in the northwest. Carrie Ann tells us how all those pieces fit together.
Every project in our master plan fits like a puzzle piece to help floodwaters safely flow through the county to Lake Mead. If one of those pieces isn't built, flooding could be possible. Let's take a look at how our construction program is helping build a better protected future.
Well, what we've done at the Regional Flood Control District is established a master plan for flood control facilities that we developed that determines where we're going to build facilities all across the county. Well, we have to build our flood control facilities in a certain order. Depending on the situation, we have to either build, if it's an open channel for instance, we have to build from the downstream and work our way upstream, because we can't divert flow or drain flow to a facility that can't handle it.
When we talk about the master plan, to appreciate what we've done, you really have to revisit Southern Nevada before the creation of the Regional Flood Control District. For example, a storm on the western part of the valley may have happened in the city of Las Vegas boundaries, and yet the floodwaters would go through North Las Vegas, unincorporated county, and that always caused problems because we were doing it piecemeal. What we had to create was a puzzle for the entire valley, and that led to the creation of the Regional Flood Control District, where we started approaching flood control from a regional perspective.
Well, we have a certain amount of resources available to us to build flood control facilities, and so we have to prioritize the facilities. What the entities will do is they'll prepare a 10-year construction program that determines the priority of the projects that they feel they want to build. The Regional Flood Control District staff will then review that 10-year program and to determine whether or not the priorities make sense with other projects and with other entities and what they're proposing in their respective areas.
We started looking at Southern Nevada as one, eliminating the jurisdictional boundaries, and the creation of that member agency buy-in has proven to be extremely successful. Whereas we put the pieces together to truly protect Southern Nevada from floodwaters, that buy-in from all the local jurisdictions into a regional body has demonstrated success.
Another thing that we look at is what other agencies are doing, such as the Regional Transportation Commission, or the cities are using a lot of Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act money to do trails and things of that nature, and we try to combine our efforts. It makes sense to combine projects with other agencies. We spend that money all at once, so it's more cost effective to do it that way. Today we've built 83 detention basins in Clark County. We've also built 550 miles of conveyance, storm drains, open channels, and that includes natural washes. We spent $1.6 billion to date. I'd say we're about 60% complete with our master plan. We have another 40% to go.
Every completed facility on the district's master plan is another area of the county that's better protected from flooding. And because we know only completed projects help protect life and property, our construction program is top priority.
Currently, we have 13 projects underway, under construction right now in the Clark County area, and that includes all of Clark County, including one project up in Mesquite. It's about $140 million worth of total construction costs underway. We have an additional 8 projects totaling about $67 million in construction costs that will soon start in about 2 to 3 months. They'll be under construction as well. So that's about 21 construction projects throughout Clark County, totaling over $200 million in construction costs.
This project is a $7.3 million project. It's a great benefit to construction in Las Vegas. I've currently got about 7 companies working under Weiser Construction. I've got a workforce of about 25 men. The particular channel that we're building, the box structure, catches water from the north end of Las Vegas and ties it into an existing underground box structure at Rainbow and Elkhorn. This area has been prone to flooding. The houses along Rainbow are dramatically impacted each time it rains. So this area is going to help prevent that from happening. Project started in March of 2010. It's scheduled to finish January of 2011. When we're finished with the project, I think the homeowners in this area are going to be very happy.
The project, it involves a lot of big RCB or reinforced concrete boxes. Elements of the project will be precast, others will be cast in place. The boxes will range from 24 by 8s, single spans, which is an extremely large box, down to 13 by 8s, 8 by 7s, and 4 by 6s. This project will have 3 distinct phases. The first phase will involve construction through the intersection of Decatur and Elkhorn. Once that construction is complete, we'll have one crew that will continue west on Elkhorn through to the intersection of Torrey Pines. While that work is being performed, a second crew will then fall back to just north of the Clark County 215 Beltway and commence construction on the east half of Decatur. The boxes will split. Half of the boxes will go up northbound or the east half of Decatur. The other half will go on the west half or southbound Decatur. Meadow Valley Contractors, in partnership with City of Las Vegas and Regional Flood Control, will ensure that we implement any measure necessary to minimize impacts to residents, commercial businesses during the construction of this project.
Once these construction projects are complete, these channels will work with the rest of the network to help safely pass floodwater to Lake Mead.
This system, built out, has to be done in a logical way. But we also have to remain true to the mission of the district, and that's to protect lives and to protect property. Our goal is to educate the community during flood events to stay away from the water, and secondly, to build the facilities to keep the water away from the people and the property.
Construction on the Las Vegas Wash at Rainbow has been going on since last March. It should be wrapping up by the end of February. The project at Decatur should be done around April 2012.
With all the work going on in the Northwest, let's find out what role all those projects play in the big picture. Carrie Ann takes us on a journey from Floydland Park all the way east to Lake Mead.
Most residents know Las Vegas is in a valley, meaning we live in a bowl surrounded by mountains. What some may not know is that bowl is tipped on its side. There's a more than 2,800-foot drop in elevation between the west and east sides of the valley. That means with or without the district's flood control facilities, the water will travel downhill to Lake Mead. What makes the difference is how safely it gets there and whether or not homes or businesses are affected along the way.
Our master plan is a network of channels and storm drains and also detention basins. The channels and storm drains convey the water, but the detention basins are kind of like the shock absorbers in the system. They take in a lot of flow and only let out what the downstream channel can carry. So they are the controllers, and they can work at different capacities during a storm event depending on how intense that rainfall is. The upper end of our flood control system is the new detention basins that are being constructed at Floydland Park. All that water that's going to come out of those detention basins will eventually end up in Lake Mead, 35 miles away.
The stormwater at the north and south environmental enhancement areas passes through a network of channels and detention basins during its trip to Lake Mead. The lower Las Vegas Wash Detention Basin and the Cheyenne-Pekin Basin help control the water as it travels through the system. The Las Vegas Wash, Lake Mead to Las Vegas Boulevard, is a channel along the route that will soon be under construction.
This project is in the upper Las Vegas Wash. The Las Vegas Wash extends all the way through town on the east side. Pretty much every drop of water in the valley eventually gets to the Las Vegas Wash. This is going to be a project that we're going to be building starting in February 2011. It's got funding for it. We're ready to kick off construction. The project is about a little over a mile. It starts at Las Vegas Boulevard and goes down to Lake Mead. It's going to cost about $26 million to complete. The project is a concrete rectangular channel. It's about 80 feet wide, 10 feet deep. There'll be a bridge replacement at Pecos and Lake Mead. In a 100-year event, the water may overtop the bridge and flood some of the roads and possibly part of the community. So the new bridge will be a lot bigger. the water will be able to flow underneath the bridge safely. Although the traffic closures on the surface are going to be a little bit of an inconvenience, we feel that the long-term benefits of the new bridge will far outweigh the minor inconvenience for short term.
Improvements along the Las Vegas Wash include more than 35 miles of channel and storm drain, which safely carry the water from Floyland Park to Lake Mead. This wash is one of 10 major washes that run through the valley. As the Las Vegas Wash travels east, it passes through both the Desert Rose Golf Course and the Clark County Wetlands Park.
Desert Rose Golf Course is the Las Vegas Wash. It's in the bottom of the Las Vegas Wash. It flows from about Stewart on the upstream end down to Sahara.
Basically, the course was designed to take all the stormwater runoff and rainwater from the Vegas Valley. So during those rain events, we basically pick up every bit of stormwater runoff that comes into the valley. And it basically filters through our property before it exits out and goes into Lake Mead.
Putting a golf course around a natural wash makes that wash an amenity to the golf course. It's better than putting homes there because those homes would be at risk, but for a golf course, the wash is not so much a risk, but an amenity, a visual aesthetic for the golfer's environment.
We have definitely done our part as a company, and with the help from the Clark County Parks and Recs as far as stewardship. We have a no buffer zone where we don't spray any pesticides, chemicals, and I monitor the wash on a daily basis to see what the flow is doing and what we have to do as far as safety for our golfers and for our employees out here.
This portion of the Las Vegas Wash we recently restudied. We've got new tools that we can use to model how much water is going to get there and where it's going to go when it gets there. These new models are more accurate, and so we can get a better picture of what's going to go on there. And what we find is that there are probably 1,400 homes that should be in the flood zone that aren't in the flood zone now. Even though we're going to map this area into a flood zone, our master plan includes improvements to eventually remove that flood zone. And Clark County is currently studying solutions to that problem so that we can get those homes ultimately out of the flood zone.
Rain that falls in Clark County eventually makes its way to Lake Mead and the Colorado River. The Clark County Wetlands Park is a 12-mile natural stretch of the Las Vegas Wash. It acts as a gatekeeper for the water headed to the lake. Because of reclaimed water, urban runoff, and storm water, approximately 153 million gallons passes through the park each day.
This is the Las Vegas Wash located within the Clark County Wetlands Park. This particular stretch of the wash is just downstream of the Pabco Weir, and the wash plays a vital role in the overall watershed of the Las Vegas Valley. It helps funnel all of the storm water, all of the treated wastewater from our local wastewater agencies, as well as groundwater flows all the way out to Lake Mead. Since the formation of the Las Vegas Wash Coordination Committee, which was more than a decade ago, we've seen numerous projects take place out here at the wash. Everything from weirs or grade control structures, which help to slow the flow of the wash and prevents erosion. And that's important because anytime there's erosion, you end up losing some of the banks. And so what you'll end up seeing is these banks continue to be cut back. And then that's impacting the wildlife, and that's impacting the habitat for them. It's affecting the plant life that's around here as well. All of the sediment that erodes away from the banks of the wash ends up being carried out to Lake Mead. So by reducing erosion, we're improving water quality in Lake Mead. For the past 10 years, the Southern Nevada Water Authority's engineering group has been partnering with some of the construction companies that are demolishing specific parts of hotels, parking garages, even the hotel structures themselves. And after those structures are imploded or demolished, we are then able to come in and pick up a lot of that concrete material and bring it out here to the wash. And so we're recycling that material and we're using it to line the banks, and we're using it as part of the grade control structures. With all of the recycled material that we have out here from the imploded casinos, it's really given some of these casinos a second life. Portions of Caesar's Palace, the Hacienda is out here, the El Rancho is out here as well. So even though those hotels aren't on the strip anymore, they're living on out here at the Las Vegas Wash.
As the Las Vegas Wash erodes, more and more sediment is carried out to the lake. Reinforcing the banks with recycled debris and building grade control structures helps cut down on erosion and improves the quality of water at Lake Mead.
Thanks, Carrie Ann. Lake Mead was created in the 1930s when Hoover Dam was being built during the Great Depression. People needed a way to control the raging Colorado River and supply water and power to southern Nevada. The river's annual flooding of crops downstream is what finally convinced the federal government to begin construction on the dam.
If you go back to the late 1800s, there was a lot of settlements starting in Southern California, the Imperial Valley, and along the lower river. So, because the snowmelt is the key part of the Colorado River water supply, in the springtime and early summer, the river was usually in flood stage, and it would wipe out irrigation fields that were started, and it was difficult to have a community along the river. By the time August rolled around, there was no water in the river to finish up what crops had survived the flood. So the idea of building a dam somewhere up in the Colorado River to control these floods, to capture that flood water and hold it until the latter part of the summer when it was needed for crops, started to take shape.
Hoover Dam's mission now is the same as it was when it first opened. It is for flood control, water for irrigation, and power generation.
And if you look at the authorization, 1928 Boulder Canyon Project Act passed by Congress, it says right up there, the #1 purpose of Hoover Dam is flood control. We get all of the water that's coming down from the upper part of the Colorado River Basin through the Grand Canyon, and we capture it in this big reservoir. And then the flows from here are controlled over the course of a year to make sure that we don't have flooding downstream.
Without Hoover Dam, there'd be no Las Vegas, and there certainly would be no Boulder City, right? Boulder City was actually the camp for the Hoover Dam workers. There'd be no power, there'd be no water supply, there'd be nothing but an arid, inhospitable desert. So right now we're overlooking the Arizona powerhouse. And right now you can see we have the ones that have the lights lit on top are actually generating.
So I've seen some workers milling about down here. What are they doing?
Right now our maintenance season runs from October 1 to May 31st. So we're in the beginning of our annual maintenance season.
So what kind of maintenance do they have to perform?
Well, on the Nevada side, we're doing a total overhaul of Unit N3. So we're going to try to recover about 9 or 10 megawatts of lost capacity due to the lake being this low.
Nothing like Hoover Dam, no dam similar in any size, shape, or form had ever been constructed prior to this one. And when it was authorized, even when it was being designed and discussed for authorization, there was a lot of people who didn't believe it could actually be done. You know, a very remote site. We're talking about the largest dam that had ever been built in the world at that time. So it was a very unique project. Hoover Dam today is kind of the iconic dam throughout the world. There are bigger dams, there are dams with more power, but almost every large dam that's been built since the 1930s stems from what was done here at Hoover Dam.
You know, I'm just proud to come to work every single day. It's the original flood control feature in the western United States. And for me to be the manager here at Hoover Dam, it's an achievement I could never have dreamed of.
During the Great Depression, the dam became a glimmer of hope for people in southern Nevada and across the nation. Thousands worked on the dam at a time when people across the nation were struggling to make ends meet. Today, the Hoover Dam remains one of the 7 wonders of the industrial world. And on a final note, in this show we talked about the wash that runs through the Desert Rose Golf Course. That area, along with 2 others, Gowan and Rancho and Moapa Valley, are being added to a flood zone by FEMA. Currently there is a 90-day appeal process where residents can challenge the changes. For more information, contact the Regional Flood Control District.